Hey, what's up, guys? Happy Monday. Wanted to answer another question for you that I get quite often. The question is, do I absolutely have to use an attorney in this business? Or can I submit claims without one? So here's my answer to that. Obviously, you all know, if you've watched any of my videos, I prefer to use attorneys in as many cases as I can. I have done cases without attorneys. So to answer the question, you can choose to not use an attorney for your cases, but you do so at your own peril. What do I mean by that? Well, let me share first the reasons why I like to use an attorney. Reason number one, attorneys help me leverage my time so that I can focus my time and energy on the activities that are going to be most profitable for my business. Filling out claim forms, filling out paperwork, submitting everything to the county or to the court, that's not a money-making activity. That's kind of like administrative tasks, and it takes me away from the activities that are going to generate the most revenue in my business. So attorneys help me leverage my time. It's the cost of doing business, but it also helps me to be more profitable if I'm using an attorney to leverage my time wisely. So that's reason number one. Reason number two is, if I find an attorney that's experienced in these matters, or is at least willing to dig in and do research and kind of figure out what the court process is or the county process is, again, that helps me leverage my time. Plus, it gives me another set of eyes to look at things and helps me to be able to navigate the different counties and their processes. Because as you know, every state is different, has different laws when it comes to surplus funds or excess proceeds. And even different counties within the same state can have different procedures and different requirements when you're submitting a claim. So if I have an attorney that's already familiar with those procedures, then I don't have to figure it out. I let them figure it out because they have experience in that already. And so again, that is also enables me to be able to move into different markets. As long as I bring a good case to the attorney and hand it off to them, they can take it from there. And I don't have to worry too much about the different processes of the counties because I already have someone on my team familiar with those processes, i.e. the attorney, okay? So that's another reason. There's a couple other reasons too. It helps when you have an attorney. It helps make things clean, and everything can go smoothly, and you don't have to deal with certain hangups. Like getting a check in the name of a client, or dealing with counties that say they won't work with third parties, stuff like that. There's little things that can easily be overcome if you're working with an attorney versus working on your own, okay? So that's the other reason, is an attorney allows me to overcome obstacles. An attorney allows me to make sure that everything is done correctly and smoothly and that everything goes well, okay? With that being said, it's really hard to find a good attorney who is familiar with surplus funds. And who has experience in surplus funds and overages. There just aren't a lot of them out there. And sometimes you have to, at least for me, I've often found myself having to educate the attorneys a little bit on the process and how it is, but then they're able to figure it out. That's not always the case. Sometimes I find one that's like, yes, I'm very familiar with this. I've done this many cases. And when that happens, it's a great day when that happens. So then the question becomes, well, how do you find a good attorney? And then a lot of people ask, how do you know what to pay them? How do you know what good compensation is? I go over all of that inside my course on how to find a good attorney and stuff like that. I've already mentioned before, attorneys will usually take payment one of three ways. They'll do a contingency or a percentage of the deal. Number two is a flat rate, either on the front end or the back end. And then number three is their hourly rate. And that can be paid either up front or on the back end. Most of my attorneys, I will either pay on contingency or once the work is done, so that I'm not coming out of pocket a bunch. So that's another, I think there's this illusion that, well, attorneys are so expensive, and they can be, but at the same time, at least in my case, I don't pay them until the work is done. And so that helps me control my costs and control my cash flow. And so, it's just part of the business. It's an expense to the business, and it's well worth it, at least in my opinion, okay? Again, this is all my opinion and me just sharing my experience with you. So the flip side, can you do it without an attorney? Yes, you can. But the problem is you're probably going to spend a lot of time on the back end processing that claim, whereas that time could be spent doing something else, like contacting people. And so you may lose out on cases because you're trying to figure out how to submit paperwork. And it's just, it can be a pain. Or let's say you get a check in the claimant's name. Well, what are you going to do now? Or let's say, the county's like, oh, no, you can't submit something for something else, for somebody else. What are you going to do now? Or let's say they give you grief for the paperwork you filed and say, oh, you did this wrong. And usually they'll say, you did this wrong, you can resubmit it. Or sometimes they'll just, they could blow you off and say, you did it wrong, we're not going to accept this claim. What are you going to do then? An attorney helps overcome all of these issues. And I'm not saying you will have those issues, but when you go out on your own, and especially if you've never done it before, that's risky in my eyes. It's pretty risky. So those are, hopefully that answers the question of, do you have to use an attorney? The answer is no, you don't. But again, if you choose not to, you do so at your own risk. And so that's all I have for you today. And again, as I mentioned, I go over this in my course, like how do you find a good attorney? Where do you start? I go over that in detail. There's a whole module inside my course about attorneys and stuff like that. So you can check that out at overagecourse.com. And other than that, that's it for today. Have a good week, guys. See ya.